me hearties, here we are today, my good pirate friend David Clouter and I, and we're in the A to Z of property strategies. Where are we today, David?
Whoa, 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 and shiver me timbers. We are still with the letter M. We've got a couple of M's to go. We might even make it as far as M. And this is an M you're going to love as someone who worked in the world of finance and so forth. It's the mortgage-backed security. Ta-da! I've been reading an amazing book called The Bank That Lived a Little, all about Barclays and their role during the so-called credit crunch. And mortgage-backed securities were a terrific idea, weren't they? Because it was all Moody's AAA rated. And we would take some very nice mortgages from Mayfair and Park Lane and Manhattan and this kind of thing, and we would slice them into tiny little pieces, lots of tiny little pieces. And then we would mix them all up with a lot of subprime lending and this kind of thing. And everybody knows that property is AAA rated, isn't it? And then it became a bit like passing the hot potato, where these things that we created, we then have to get rid of them as quickly as possible to investors. And I don't know if you saw that film with Brad Pitt. Now, what was it called? Not The Wolf of Wall Street. It was the other one.
Short or something?
Yep, it was. It was something like that. But just look up Brad Pitt's movies. The Big Short. The Big Short. That's the one, not The Big Lewinsky or something, but The Big Short, where this guy, and this was based on a true story, who must have been super geeky. He actually got, well, he didn't. He was running this fund, and he got one of his juniors to analyse one of these mortgage-backed securities, which literally had thousands of mortgages all combined into this one product. And he realised that if only a few of them failed, the whole product failed. And so then he took a position, didn't he? He took a position against the banks on property. He made absolutely certain that his stuff was that his thing was secured, and the bank said, "Well, okay, hey, we'll take your money, boy, if you want to lose it." And sure enough, and his investors were getting a bit itchy because the market wasn't crashing as he had predicted. I think he predicted it 3 or 4 months before it actually did, and then he made himself an awful lot of money by betting against the markets. But the mortgage-backed security thing was seemed like a great idea at the time, and then we had a prime minister at about that time, didn't we, who said the era of boom and bust is over. But when that little sort of thing exploded, it showed that that Gordon was a bit premature in his comments.
Yeah, no, I think the mortgage-backed securities. The thing is, it's a mortgage. What is a mortgage? It's a liability. So people have invested in liabilities, not assets. They haven't actually got the real estate underpinning it. And the problem effectively was they were bundled together to try and confuse, hide, befuddle the average person. Now, when I worked in a bank, I used to buy other banks, and we had a model that we used, and we would analyse the propensity of mortgages to go into arrears based on statistical modelling and profiles and demographics of customers and payment histories and so forth. And I just don't get how the investment banks could think it was a good idea, because the retail banks knew the risk, and it was the investment banks that were buying it off the retail banks who loved it because it was filling their coffers with cash to go out and lend more, to be able to bring more in. And so it was a bonkers scenario. It was totally bonkers. So, don't ever go near mortgage-backed securities, because they should have actually been renamed correctly liability-backed securities.
Yes. And I think I'm right in saying that towards the end of all this, just before it started unravelling, some of the banks who created them were buying them back again. So they'd sort of forgotten, really, the whole aspect of things. But anyway, but that book, The Bank That Lived a Little, is a great read or audio listen for anybody who's interested in that kind of thing. It describes that thing. Or the Brad Pitt movie as well. So, which leads us on to how many M's can there be? This M is quite an extensive letter, isn't it? We've got the motivated seller.
What's one of those, David?
Well, it's not a place where you keep the wine, although it might be. This is, So there are two ways to buy property at value. One of them is, of course, if there's something wrong with the property that puts off other buyers. So, for example, I love properties that don't have a kitchen and bathroom. I think they're terrific because it's not very difficult to put one in, but lenders see that as making that property about as much use as a tent in a field. So you're not going to be getting a mortgage on that. You could probably get some bridging finance. But again, if you've got your cash reserve, your liquidity reserve that we talked about earlier, you might be able to buy it out of that and then pay yourself back at the end. But that's one kind of thing where you can get a thing. But then there are motivated sellers, people who really need to get rid of that property before they skip the country to escape their creditors or whatever it is they're doing. It might be that they need to have, that they have some medical emergency. So it's not just for kind of shady folks. It might be that, for example, I don't know, they might be two or three brothers or sisters or a mixture of those siblings who have inherited a property and they just want to get rid of it. They don't want to have the hassle that comes with owning it. There are many that they might want to send their offspring to a private school and not have the funds to do that. But for whatever reason, they want to raise some money off an illiquid asset quickly. And that's where you can come along and sort of ease their pain, but you have to at the same time explain to them that money doesn't grow on the old proverbial trees, as people think, and that because you're going to buy it from them quickly, you're not going to offer them the same price. And that's fair. That's fair because you have to come up with this money instantly out of a hat. So it's only fair that they should give you a reduction in the asking price.
Yeah, and you often find motivated sellers, they could have been on the market a while as well. And even if they haven't and it's a probate, or if they need to do a moonlight flip from the country, or whichever method it is, you'll often find their properties are not in a condition necessarily to sell. If it was in a damn good condition in the first place, they'd probably hook a buyer fairly quickly. So you end up tying up a reasonably good discount. And, you know, sometimes the perception of the more complex a problem, such as they've converted a house to flats and they can't get a mortgage on it because they didn't get planning permission for the flats, and they're like, oh, woe is me. But they've had them as flats for 5, 8, 10 years. You know, as an investor, that's just a paperwork exercise. You have to apply to the council with a planning permission application for a certificate of lawfulness, providing evidence that over the previous 4+ years, you have been using those as flats, paying council tax and all the tenancy agreements and that sort of stuff to evidence. And that's relatively easy to do. But for somebody who isn't familiar with that, it can be a pain in the posterior. So anyway.
Or it might be, for example, a property with a short lease,
yeah,
where they might even know how to extend it, but they might not have the capital to do it. So you can immediately, at the point of exchange or completion, of probably completion, isn't it? Do a back-to-back on it, where they have to request it from the freeholder, and then you put the cash in at the point where it becomes yours to extend that lease, and instantly that property that you bought is worth more and stuff like that. Because I'm not a great fan of shovels and sledgehammers and all that kind of thing, and digging holes in the ground and all that, and underpinning. So kind of, if you can sort something out with the paperwork, it's much better. One bit of paperwork it's very important to get a motivated seller to sign, or indeed somebody who's selling a distressed property, is a declaration of solvency. Because if they're teetering on the brink of bankruptcy and they've disposed of this property at what might be considered less than market value, and that would be deemed to be the case if it was a direct-to-vendor thing, if it's in an auction, or if it's being marketed through the estate agent and you put in an offer, well, everybody's had a chance to see it and that's what it was worth. But if it's a sort of over-the-counter thing with just you and them in the living room, an official receiver might wish to unwind that transaction as part of wrapping up their affairs. So always get that vendor to sign, in those circumstances, a declaration of solvency.
Very wise advice, David. Very wise advice.
Shall we move on?
That sounds a good move to me.
Now, here's something that must annoy vendors and estate agents equally. It's those... Whoa!
I'm just watching the pirates swinging from the lanyards.
Well, yes, and did you know that it's got a little radio station at the back as well? Because they were pirates on ships too. So that's why I got my headphones on.
This boat's called Caroline.
It's the good ship Caroline. Now, something that totally annoys everybody really is multiple low offers, where you will go and offer on about 10 properties, silly offers in the hope that one of them will bite. And if you're working in an area, which I presumably you are, you have your patch, and you make a habit of doing this, then the agents will get so disillusioned with you and annoyed. I had a case where this one guy that I knew got into such hot water with the agents that they wouldn't even show up for viewings with him anymore at the properties, and he got himself such a reputation for doing this that he would just be at the property and he'd be ringing up and they wouldn't even pick up the phone. So again, it's one of these strategies which is not illegal, but it's just a bit dumb because nobody will want to work with you anymore. Now, when we come on to N, we'll do the Andrew Roberts Negotiation 101 on the correct way to do all this kind of thing, but that isn't one of them. In 5 minutes, yes, I'm looking forward to that. That'll probably be next week. Although I don't know if we hurry up. Nobody knows it. Like apart from that guy who's the hostage negotiator, he's pretty good at it. Was it Chris Voss?
Yes.
He's pretty sharp at buying property, but nobody buys property quite as well as Andrew, I have to say. Well,
I'm flattered by you, good sir. I'm flattered by you, but I'm completely blown away and speechless for words, and it takes a lot for that to happen for me.
Well, I saw your talk recently on negotiation, and it was hot stuff.
Well, thank you. I mean, how do you condense a sort of hour and a half talk into 5 minutes or even 20?
That's the thing. But when we come to P, I'm going to have to condense my hour-long talk about property cycles into 5 minutes. So you're going to set the bar high by what you'll do with negotiating. This is great fun. It won't be this time.
I might just have time to mention lots of words, and then we'll just move on.
Well, we've got 2 more before we come to negotiating, so it will probably, if we string this along a bit, it will probably go on to next week, and then you'll have 2 complicated ones to do. Right, that'll be good.
Oh,
now
you're going to look forward to next week, everybody. I can tell you that.
I am, because you always rise to the challenge. You always do a great job. So the next 2, N is for negative. And there are 2 of those, so let's start with the E one, negative equity. So there can be a property which doesn't have as much equity in it as it has mortgage, which is a bit of a shame. And that can be due to a number of reasons. It could be due to either the market falling, which can happen, or it could be due to the property being in a pretty poor state. These are 2 things, or something nearby happening to that property, like they're going to put a motorway through it or something, and it's about to be compulsorily purchased, or they're going to build a multi-storey car park opposite, as is about to happen to my home here. And these kind of things which won't turn it into negative equity, but it might knock a few bob off the price. So, how do we deal with a sort of negative equity situation? One possibility, I suppose, would just be to wait as the value of the property goes up. That won't always be possible. If your property is close to a cliff edge and the edge of that cliff is getting ever closer, it's very unlikely that property will rebound to the point where you don't have negative equity. And I know it was the case during some of the huge property crashes that there have been, that people would just go into the mortgage company saying, hand back the keys. Well, yes, there's that. And I think I can see one there off the stern of the ship. Oh, there's something crumbling. Hey. Oh, hi there. The idea that you can just hand the keys back and walk away doesn't work very well in a negative equity situation, because you find yourself still owing the balance. And so it's an area where you have to sort of tread carefully. Now, as a buyer, there might be opportunities for us if there's a property in negative equity, whereby it's not. Well, an ideal situation would be where the vendor pays you to take it off their hands, but that's not going to happen. But you may well be able to pick it up for a song and then come to an agreement with the lender, or refinance or something like this, or find some way to deal with this problem. If it's got if it's an end of terrorist or something, you can probably do a title split or something and then build on the bit at the side. Or we have ways of adding value, and they can work in negative equity situations just as well as not quite just as well, because there's some delicate negotiating that needs to be done, which we'll talk about next time. Sorry,
but one of the things you can do if you're in negative equity is approach the lender with an authority to discuss on the borrower's behalf and negotiate a haircut on their loan, basically saying, look, they want to chuck the keys back, I'm prepared to make an offer, my offer's X, but it's less than the mortgage, you write off the balance and we've got a deal. And that's one way that you can certainly buy it at the price you want, gets them out of negative equity, and it's a good way of moving forward. So it's possible that there are solutions. That's just one of the many solutions that you can use for negative equity.
That's a good one. That's a good one. You will obviously have to educate the buyers, the vendors, to understand that they can't just walk away and hand back the keys, because I'm sure there must be many people who think that is the case.
Yeah, well, from my days working in a bank and working in a law firm, one of the things we did, because the law is stacked in their favour, you owe money, you signed a contract and you can't walk away. I seem to recall the period is 12 years. They have up to 12 years to pursue you for any shortfall, i.e. negative equity. Should you just walk in, hand the keys back, they choose to sell it in auction, it's a £100,000 mortgage, they achieve $50,000 in auction, they've got 12 years to collect that shortfall of $50,000 from you. So it's not a good idea just to walk in and give back the keys. That doesn't work. So. Absolutely.
And that's the thing to remember, isn't it? Now we're kind of looking way over the sort of pirate horizon to kind of to the land of Down Under. There was a song about that, wasn't it? And Vegemite sandwiches featured.
I'm just about to burst into song with you then.
And a common property strategy, if you like, down there is negative gearing, whereby your rent is £300 a month and your mortgage is £350 a month. So every month you pay some money in. Now this would totally freak out anybody here in the UK, and they think, oh my God, I've got to sell it or whatever. But down there, they regard their properties, I suppose, that their investment properties as like a pension. And so in the same way that you would pay into your pension pot every month, they think nothing of it. And over time, these things do turn around. But it seems to be par from the course there. And I don't see anything wrong with it as such.
Well, the negative gearing, effectively what they're doing is they're making a capital play rather than a yield play with their properties. But also, Australia has rules. We used to have MIRAS, mortgage interest relief at source, is what MIRAS stands for. We used to have MIRAS here in the UK, and what the Australians have is a similar system where they get tax relief on their mortgage payments. As landlords, we used to have it. Section 24 has revoked that, but they have it in Australia. And basically they were happy to go to work to pay somebody else or to pay the mortgage for somebody else to live in their property for less money than they were taking through the front door, because coming in the back door was a tax refund. However, the tax refund only ever accounted for probably 3 to 4 months worth of mortgage shortfall, so you were still left cash out of pocket every month, and it wasn't and still isn't a strategy to as is termed here in the UK, chuck in the day job. You actually need the day job, and a lot of Australians have 2 day jobs to actually pay the negative gearing, and to me it's not good business sense. Even though their accountants tell them it's good financial sense, you're speculating. And the problem that quite a lot of them have found, and it's come home to roost in Australia particularly, where negative gearing is quite a big thing there, is they get to the retirement and they go, right, we're going to sell the property. But as you've probably noticed here in the UK, areas come up and values go up, and then they go down because the area next door's gone up. And it could be a mining area, and everybody's plunged all their cash into a mining area, and they've plundered the mine for everything, and then the town has died, and nobody wants to buy what's there anymore because nobody wants to live there. So you're left holding a property that has been negatively geared and you've been paying into all your life, and now you can't get rid of. So negative gearing, I'd give it a wide berth as a strategy personally.
Yes.
What about you, David?
I think it belongs in the same box as endowment mortgages. Remember those?
Yeah, I had a good deal on my endowment mortgage. I'm not complaining, but then again, it was down to compensation and lots of other things.
Oh well. But I was promised, all expenses paid holiday and a Maserati and all this kind of stuff at the end of the thing. And I just said to them, look, if I don't understand this, I'll just go for I said, I'm not very clever. I'll just go for the repayment one if it's all the same. And they're going, you're missing out. I said, you have the Maserati, I said to them. And so it was.
Yeah, they chucked in the kitchen sink, didn't they? And then had to also pay for it to be refurbished 10 years down the line.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. That thing came back and had untoward consequences.
It did.
But
I'm feeling rather seasick on this pirate ship. I don't know about you, David.
Yeah.
So I think that's time for today, so I can go and get myself some seasick tablets. What about you?
Yes, absolutely. So there was a. Since we're on the good ship Caroline, we'll play some Seasick Steve. I don't know if you've come across him. He's a great artist.
I know Seasick Steve really well, and when we go off air, I'll share a little story with you.
Hey.
So until next week, while David and I go and have a chat about Seasick Steve, we'll see you next week. All the best.
All the best.